There we
Better. Welcome to the December 5th, 2022 meeting of the Hampden Board of Selectmen. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This meeting is held live in the Townhouse Auditorium, also broadcast over Zoom. We are recording it. Is anybody else recording it? Seeing none. First, I'd like to, before we start the meeting, I'd like to thank those who made last night's tree lighting happen. The Hampden Police Department, the Fire Department, Kate Rumplick, the choir from Green Meadows, and their leader. Do we know the name of that lady?
No, I don't know the course teacher.
Both Jane Beninkowitz and Craig Revest for the tree work and the electronics that made it happen. And for Craig, what would you say?
Girl
There
Scouts.
had to be
Girl Scouts.
over 100 people there, you would think, right? 100 people. The Girl Scouts were fantastic as well. It just was an excellent night. It spoke to, I think, a bit of the resurgence for the spirit in town that for a couple of years was down because of the pandemic, and it's bouncing back nicely. Craig, your
Santa
voice
Parade
was in excellent form. And of course, Mr. and Mrs. Claus were a hit as always. So, with that out of the way, Pam, first on the notice, do we have any minutes? We're still reviewing that for later. Okay.
I only saw one copy. I don't know if there was more than one copy.
Yeah, the only one I saw was the exec. So this is the.
Oh, sorry.
November 7th?
November 7th.
I saw the February 22nd one.
You have what?
What do you have?
I have November 7th.
In my folder is February. That's okay.
Oh,
I
good.
don't get that folder very often.
Yeah.
That's okay. All right, so you're going to reach out to
Yes.
Steve Trombley for the last name for Scott from MEMA?
Yeah.
Okay. Just the stump grinding thing.
Yeah.
I thought we had heard they actually did get it done. They're looking for reimbursement. No?
No.
Yes.
No?
No, they didn't do it. The last I knew, they haven't done it up there.
I thought I heard they did it. They were.
I thought they ground the stumps and they're looking for reimbursement.
Oh, I think they, my memory is that they
As
had
of
not
town
done it.
meeting,
They were going to seek the money the proper way and come before the town and ask for it. I mean, I can review the.
yeah, as of town meeting, they hadn't been done. 'Cause I went up there to inspect it and they weren't done.
Okay.
And this, as far as,
Maybe they were saying they planned on getting it done before
Before
asking
you-
for the, so it wasn't like we were gonna appropriate the money to do it. It would be done by the time they asked the money.
Right. Yeah, maybe that's it.
You know, so
Well,
they had it done in the spring for safety.
I will look at that.
Okay.
and I also thought we had said that we didn't think it was a good idea about the land acquisition that they were looking for.
No.
Or we didn't
We didn't commit. to
we didn't commit to the purchase and sale.
the purchase
That's
and
what it was.
sale is what we didn't wanna do, right?
We didn't want to do that prior to the town meeting.
Exactly. But the fact that it was contiguous with the mountain and not really buildable land made it seem appropriate for the acquisition.
That was also the advice of town council. Not
I
to
spoke
sign the
to
P&L.
Rick.
Yeah.
He's still researching the work with Buddy for the land thing, so that's going on the fence. I don't see any issue really.
Move approval of the November 7th, 2022 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Okay. What else we got here?
So we have some guests. We do. wanna run up to our table, please?
We have-
Turn on the mics for you.
We have guests online
We have one online too.
for the Audubon
From the-
Society, just the Audubon?
Someone online. There's someone online looking to get in.
Oh, they go up on the bar on the left. I think it was somebody Marcotte.
I did see a lady on.
She was already admitted,
Nicole?
Okay.
Yes.
and then I
Nicole.
think she lost
No, she's right there.
contact.
No.
There she
Right
is.
there.
She's
There she is,
there.
there she is.
Yeah.
Okay. She's muted.
She's waving at them. Okay, great.
She is. She'll get to
You
speak
want her
later.
Unmuted?
She can, what I'd like to do is if she could share her screen and show you a map or a couple
Okay,
of
sure.
slides. I don't know if
Bob,
that's
you'll have to make her a
possible.
co-host, I think.
Okay.
That's wicked power right there. He'll have control of his computer, just like the Russians do right now.
No, she's not like the Russians.
She is now
I'm
co-host.
sorry, I didn't ask her that.
So I'm
Yes.
Kate Butoff.
She's co-host.
How are you?
Nice, thank you. So. There we go.
Okay,
There we go.
So that's me, Kate Butoff, Land Protection Specialist.
okay.
Nicole, Conservation Restriction Stewardship Specialist. And about 2 weeks ago, we met with the Conservation Commission to give them the same presentation and ask if they would hold a conservation restriction on 64 acres of land that we are in contract to purchase. That land is off of Chapin Road. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's the old Moran property, which was then purchased by a developer. Thank you. Al Joyce, Bedrock Financial. And once he had closed, I then went back to him and said, we'd like to protect the backland. It's all super habitat for box turtles and it's connected to our wildlife sanctuary. And he was amenable to doing that. He felt it was a building lot, but he was okay with parting with that for the appraised value. So we have applied for 2 grants, one from the Department of Fish and Game and one from the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife. They are mitigation and pilot program related grants. And they both come with a requirement that we have a conservation restriction on the property as well as our own fee ownership of it. So normally Mass Audubon doesn't put a conservation restriction on land that we already own because we're a land trust and we're not a developer, and it's protected under Article 97 by virtue of our ownership and how we take it in the deed. These 2 grants want an extra layer of protection. So they'd like to have they want us to record a CR on it. It's 64 acres, and we thought that it would be great if the Conservation Commission would be willing to do that.
Who would hold the CR, the Concom? Or
Yes,
you?
the Concom. We own the property, so we
Right.
can't hold the CR.
Okay.
It has to be a separate organization. If it's just a homeowner who's protecting land or a company, the CR holder is sort of an enforcement person. They monitor the land and make sure that you're not putting up a swimming pool or a tennis court on land that's already protected,
Right.
or that doesn't have some exception. In this case, our goals for the property are pretty much aligned with the Conservation Commission. We're sort of an unusual owner in that we're not about to be developing it. The CR does not allow for a lot of activity. It's mainly allows for passive recreation. Doesn't even allow for building new trails because it's habitat for box turtles. Box turtles don't leave home, and when they do, they try to get back there, and that's why it's sort of a special place.
So is this a no trespassing area then, because you can't put trails in it?
No, it will be open for people who are willing to sort of do a little bushwhacking, and there are some paths through there. They're like animal paths. I've walked through it a couple
Yeah,
times.
runs.
It's also very wet in a lot of places because it's also protecting a lot of the Scantic River.
Yeah, I noticed that you don't abut it everywhere, so looks like that property has frontage up on Chapin Road.
Yes,
So will there be an expansion with a trail going up there, or? No plans at this point.
There's no plans and no, we've said to the grant people that we're not going to put in trails. One of the grant funders says if we were going to put in trails, we would have to survey them out and they would not pay for that property. And since we're not proposing to put trails in here and it's it's pretty walkable as it is. And actually that frontage is where there's a pipeline easement.
So you're not cutting trails, but people could go in there and fish off of the locations off the river there if they wanted to, because it would be conservation land, so they could access it.
They could access conservation land, correct?
And could they fish off of there?
Probably not.
Because it's not allowed, or?
That would be different for Mass Audubon's, for the way we use wildlife sanctuaries. We don't normally allow hunting or fishing. It's meant to be a sanctuary,
Okay, so fishing would not be allowed.
correct?
Is this the complete lot from Mrs. Moran?
This,
That was only because.
yes, including the lots along the road.
Well, because you remember, my father was actually trying to get some of this property at one time because it abuts the same area.
Please, yeah.
Once he was trying to get her to donate some of that to the back part up here.
For the
close to
cemetery.
river, right, to expand St. Mary's area. So I thought there was,
The town actually owns one of the skinny lots that comes in off of Scantic Road and backs up to this, as does the power company, two of them. And, sorry.
I really don't see a downside to this, except we always have the question of when CRs can happen. Are they typically annual town meeting actions? And I think research that, I think, is there a time frame here this has to happen by?
we'd like to have it happen in the spring next year,
Okay.
if possible.
We're looking at, if it requires town meeting approval, it would be second week of May. So,
It normally usually these need select board to sign them.
And you may be right. Let's say we'll just ask
Yeah.
our attorney. And you said Concom was totally in favor of it?
They seemed in favor of it. They seemed a little concerned about their capacity to do annual monitoring. So we've done a little research on that, which Nicole can speak to, but I also would just say that we're going to give some money to the town to go with this. We calculated the way we do it in any transaction like this. It should throw off enough money for a person to do the monitoring once a year and write a report. Again, in this case, we'd be happy to join that person and help them out because we don't expect a lot of issues to crop up. There may be some issues with the residential boundary. There's a section of boundary that's the residents, future residents, which might be an issue. The dotted portion where it says proposed CR, that's a different CR. That's an 11-acre CR that Bedrock Financial is required to put on that 11 acres as a mitigation for his development along the road. We will hold that CR. So we're going to hold a CR on 11 acres.
Because you won't own that land, right?
We will not own that land.
Right.
He will own that land.
But we will monitor it and make sure that it stays open. And
As far as the town's conservation commission holding the CR, is there any yearly expenses that are going to occur from us holding the CR and you owning the land?
only the monitoring of it.
Just the monitoring. So there's no yearly fees or anything like that?
No. The idea is that you just make sure that we're not building swimming pools and fishing ramps and whatever. Yeah, roads, trails, the things we're not supposed to do.
It's good that it abuts your current property. If I could ask, and I don't know if you can speak for Laughing Brook or for Audubon, what's the current plans or status for Laughing Brook at this point? Do you plan any expansion or new programs we haven't heard of? You have the caretaker living there.
We do have a caretaker living there. We do, want to, I think, expand programming, but I personally don't know all that. I can't answer that, I'm sorry. I could find out.
time maybe we could reach out and have him come to a meeting. I think he was here a year or so ago at one time. So it'd be handy to maybe touch base with him.
Jonah?
Yes.
Yeah, Jonah would, I'm sure would be happy to.
I just think it's a big chunk of property, almost matches similar to what's already on the other side of it. You know, it'd be beneficial to increase the trails in there, walking or hiking, you know, because there's a good amount on the other side. You know, now you're doubling the land perspective. Why would it not be thought of to increase the recreational aspect of it? and
Well,
value?
certainly with passive, we have passive recreation, so people can certainly walk there.
Right.
And we could do programming there. We could take people on guided hikes and show them habitat and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's not like it's gonna be off limits.
Can Nicole, excuse me, can Nicole speak to the monitoring with the,
Yes,
Okay.
she is our monitoring expert,
Okay.
and she has a portion of this presentation for you was to talk about what it's like when we monitor CRs, just to give you a feel for what's involved.
okay. You're on, Nicole.
That's your cue.
Yeah, well, thank you all so much for letting me join virtually. I really appreciate it. And really, my intent is just to share what I do as a conservation restriction stewardship specialist. It's my job to go out and monitor Mass Audubon's held CRs, specifically in the western half of the state. So I shared this information with the Concom a few weeks ago, just to kind of lay out the picture a bit more of what that monitoring responsibility will look like. And essentially, the main purpose for monitoring is to record changes on the property on an annual basis. There were some questions regarding whether or not the Concom would be required to monitor the property annually, knowing that in perpetuity, every year coming up with funds to monitor the property might be a challenge. So Kate and I discussed the possibility of what it would look like if the Concom came out on a 3-year basis to monitor the property. As an accredited land trust, as Mass Audubon is, I'm required to go out to our held CRs on an annual basis, and that's due to upholding our accreditation. But since the Concom is not an accredited land trust, that's not necessarily a requirement to be out there every year. It's good practice when it comes to CR monitoring, but as Kate mentioned, this is a unique situation in Mass Audubon being the actual landowner, knowing that we're not looking to develop the property and cause any issues. There really shouldn't be much going on that would raise any red flags. And we, as Mass Audubon, are also required to visit the property on a regular basis in order to uphold the parameters of the grants that Kate was mentioning. So there'll be eyes on the ground. So that idea of the Concom felt more comfortable with going out on a 3-year basis rather than an annual basis is definitely something that we would be up for accepting. So also it's just a way to maintain good relations with the landowner. Thought this would be a great way to kind of keep the connections with Mass Audubon in Hampden, and then just to detect and deter any violations. So in the CR itself, there's lists of permitted and prohibited activities. I know the CR is still in draft form, but it would really be looking at that to see what is and what isn't allowed. So for example, can pretty much say that ATV use on the property will not be allowed. So if someone goes out and monitors and they see tracks, that's something that they would want to record. And really any violations that come up that the Concom would see, they're responsible for letting Mass Audubon know, but Mass Audubon is responsible for dealing with the issues and the violations. It's not up to the Concom to enforce. It's up to Mass Audubon to enforce, to deter any of those issues or violations. And then I just have some information here on best practices when it comes to setting up an annual monitoring visit. It's important to think about what time of year to be out in the field. Typically spring and fall are nice times to be out there. Just when it's leaf off, you can see a bit more that's happening on the ground. Then scheduling actual fieldwork visit, would love to attend with the Concom, reaching out to Mass Audubon so someone can be out there as well. Following up with a report and then just keeping track of those records afterwards. The field visit is really the meat, obviously, of doing your monitoring, and it's really important to review the baseline and the CR language prior to going out into the field, just so that you know what you're looking for in terms of special conservation. So like if we saw a box turtle, that'd be really important to note. Or if we did see maybe hunting stands, knowing that that's not allowed. So just knowing ahead of time what to be looking for. Talking with Mass Audubon to see if there are any changes to the property. Maybe we decided to put in an informational kiosk somewhere, and we would want to let you all know that in advance. Taking photos while you're out in the field, it's really great to capture any of the issues that might be arising, but it's also nice to capture the actual landscape itself so that we can kind of see those changes over time. For example, if we notice that there's a patch of invasive barberry in one portion of the forest, and we took a photo in 2023 and it was quite small. And then in 2025, we noticed that it's all of a sudden a half acre large. This might be kind of the trigger to let Mass Audubon know, hey, we might want to intervene here. You all might want to consider some restoration and pulling these invasive plants and planting native ones. I think that's always nice to kind of capture the overall health of the land and not just necessarily violations. When folks are actually walking on the property, it's important to kind of go where the people go. So focus on the boundaries. Definitely those lines that will be bordering that planned housing lot will be really important to walk that on a yearly basis. But maybe some of the wetland areas in the back portion of the property wouldn't be necessarily as high risk to go out and visit every year or every 3 years even. So kind of making a plan of where the best areas to go will be. Checking in with any questions, and then yeah, just adjusting where you're walking based on those high risk areas. So the monitoring reports are the follow-up for the monitoring visit itself. And this is what can take a little bit of time, but it's important to note, and I shared this with the Concom as well, that really these reports can be as robust as you would like them to be. But some of the typical information that's important to include is any of the information that was maybe discussed with Mass Audubon on plans for the property, acknowledging relevant areas of the property that are covered. So I personally have a tablet that I take out in the field with me where I have a map of the property with the survey lines of the parcel, and then I can track exactly where I go and create a map afterwards that shows the landowners, hey, this is where I walked this year. You can then create waypoints for any photos taken so they know exactly where on the property photos may have been taken. There's a lot of really helpful free apps on smartphones that can be utilized. I know that technology can be limiting, knowing that this is what we do at Mass Audubon and the Concom may not have those types of technologies readily available, but I will say that there are a lot of great free apps that can be of use when someone might just have their phone on them out in the field. Also just capturing the overall property conditions, what the health of the property looks like in terms of the state of the habitat, any issues that you may be encountered. I would say a lot of times the largest issues really arise where we abut any neighbors that are private landowners. So folks love to dump their yard waste and grass clippings on conservation areas. That's a big one, or maybe trash. Sometimes there might be lawn encroachments where folks don't fully understand where their property line ends. So those tend to be the biggest issues that we see. And I think that's where some peace of mind comes from in knowing that Mass Audubon will be holding that CR that directly abuts that planned housing lot. So I'll be out there on an annual basis monitoring that CR. So I'll be in the know if anything is happening from those abutting neighbors, and would be happy to walk that line a little bit further into the other CR held by the Concom to just make sure that everything looks all right. Noting any natural changes to the property, any man-made changes to the property. As I mentioned before, ATV use can be a big one as well. Here in this photo, I saw a hunting stand on the property where hunting wasn't allowed. So just keeping your eyes peeled for those types of violations while we're out there and just making sure they're recorded. And then labeling any photos that you take. But I will say that it's definitely very manageable. I think that in terms of the question of whether or not it needs to happen on an annual basis, Kate and I are flexible in discussing that with the Concom and knowing that it can be quite a lift capacity wise to do that, but hoping that the funds that we have available to share with you all and any advice that we have to share would be of help. And also just in knowing in general that we'll be out on that property on a regular basis as well. So we'll have eyes on the ground. But that was really the bread and butter of what I have to share, and happy to help answer any questions if there's any.
Just to go back to that last slide that were the monitoring.
It's pretty much what we do.
There's a lot there. Conservation Commission doesn't do that. They may not have the means to do some of this monitoring that we require. And we may need to get an engineer to do the type of legwork needed. The costs or the funding as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of the Cadillac version of monitoring, and it's mainly the goal is to walk around the boundaries and just check out that the property doesn't look different. Yes.
And the other concern I just had is now we're taking a substantial chunk of property that somebody could fish on. And then now we're saying, no, you can't fish at all. Whereas now there's still an
Well,
opportunity,
it was
Yeah, but it
private
is
property.
but there's still the option to allow fishing on private property. And now, you're taking it away. The landowner doesn't even have a choice. Now he can say, yeah, Scantic, whereas now it's absolutely no.
Just on the portions that are,
Nicole, can you kick back to the layout part? The map?
to the map.
There we go, thank you. So I see what you're saying, Craig. I mean, there is some part there, but again, there goes the Scannick is open. It is a concern.
Right. I'm just saying we're delineating more property that's no access to fishing, whereas now it's owner's permission requested.
I mean, it would be nice if there was a way, you do see that, there is an open spot in the middle with permission, if there was a trail at least, allowing it to go to that homeowner's part in the middle.
I don't even know who owns
Down
that.
the road.
You're talking about this one,
I
right?
mean, but if there was permission.
Yeah.
You mean the
easy
this
access.
big section in the middle?
Right.
Well, if you had
At some
permission
point that
from
allowed
those,
access across your property to permitted fishing down there.
you can certainly,
That brings up a good point.
you can go across our property and access the stream that's not on our property. If that private landowner was willing to have you fish there, you can certainly go across our land to get there.
Right.
Not prohibited from, because of their purpose, your ultimate purpose, you're not prohibited.
Okay.
A lot of people fish at Arcadia, actually, Mill River.
Great. Okay, so
Anything
we're
else?
going to research the CR part of it, okay? You may be correct that we can take care of it at our meeting.
Okay,
If not, we'll get back to you and, tell you what we're going to do.
great.
I know the last one down we did the CR, the landfill was at a town meeting, so we'll just verify.
And so are you making a decision that it's acceptable for this Concom to hold the CR at this point?
Well, we had no problem, they had no problem holding it for the project we just did up at the landfill for a solar project, so.
I think we would need to hear from
I can't
Concom.
speak for them, but we were able to work it out for them. I see the administrative assistant is here, I know one of the co-chairs is online, but let's flesh it out with them and get back. You brought it forward, I think it's a project that needs to go forward, and we're very amenable to working with all parties.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming out here,
Thank you for
Sure.
coming out.
and
Thank you, Nicole.
thank you, Nicole.
Your mic is not working.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Whoa.
Yeah, the red light's not on over here either. Just turn it off, turn it on for a second. Sarah said she couldn't hear you.
Carolyn, can you hear now?
Sarah.
Carolyn,
No.
also.
Either that or they think that you're talking through.
All right, well,
We have another battery problem.
Ted says you just need to pull the mic closer. No, get right on it. Talking to that mic.
Okay, sidewalk contract. I asked to have this back on in a different way. Bob had done a little research, checking with the state about where the funding stands. We really don't have an assurance that the funds are in place at this point. Craig and I both saw Representative Ash at the grand reopening of the Dunkin' Donuts last week. He mentioned he was going to look into it as well. But at this point, we have no timeline for when there would be check coming to Hampden or money available to draw. So I'm hesitant to cut a contract for high and bond for that amount of money. I have no problem when we don't know that the funding is in place to pay the bill.
You know my motto, show me the money.
For me,
What is it?
Show me the money.
no.
Yeah.
Well, if I think we need to know the money is there to be released at some point when we get ready to go.
You did see the updated tie and bond contract. Their original estimate to do only the south side design was for $183,000. The new proposal, which just came in, is for $203,000. That would include the design on the north side, the redesign on the north side of the existing sidewalk, but not an extension.
Right, I think that part, we saw that. I think the real question for that extension would be, what's the cost of material to replace?
Right.
That's, and I know Mark was researching what a projection for concrete cost in next year might be. Well, we're nowhere at this point. Although he has a good sense of having just done the crosswalk part. So
So we
something,
have two issues. How far will the money go and when will the money come in?
Right.
The funding is in the transportation bond. And the question is, when will the governor provide the funding? And
Sure.
you're saying that is that the consensus of the board, we don't go forward until we have an assurance by way of a contract from the Commonwealth for the funding.
well, after having gone through the MVP thing last year,
Yeah.
where we took a hit on our free cash because they were late with the check, we're making a commitment, actually spending the town's money without authorization to borrow in anticipation of reimbursement. And I question whether we really have the authority to do that without the commitment from the state to pay the money. It's very similar in my mind to Chapter 90,
Yeah.
where we get town meeting approval to borrow for a bond. So, okay,
That's the position of the
that's
board.
my thought. Does the board
Yeah.
agree with that?
No, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll wait for the money.
Wait for at least some assurance
Sure.
that, hey, a check's
Oh,
coming.
wait,
Right.
I've looked at the actual transportation bond, and there are dozens of communities that receive some kind of commitment for funding. So I think the pressure will be on from the communities through their representatives to the state, to the new governor, I guess, to come up with the funding. But we will not, as I understand your position, we will not move forward until we have that assurance.
I'd rather not move forward till the money's in the bank.
That
I may
bond
go
bill-
back, excuse me, I may go back a while,
Yeah.
but Doug Connecto, Chris, they remember, Becky can remember when we saw mid-year cuts to money they promised us.
The 9C
Whether it
cuts,
was
yeah.
9C money, whether it was the cherry sheet. So like Don said, if the money's in our bank, we'll write that check tomorrow. So, I'm sorry, Craig.
That's okay. That bond bill, is there a restriction? Does it have to be used for what we wrote it for that section of the road? My question was, can we apply for the casino mitigation funds to see if we get that for that stretch
For the other
instead?
side as
And
well.
then,
Or did it just say sidewalk along Main Street? which was
Sidewalk,
kinda-
it said sidewalk on Main Street in
That's what it
Hampden.
says.
It didn't
yeah.
say south
has to be
side
split
versus
up.
north
No,
side?
no.
Perfect.
So I think what we decided last week was that this particular transportation bond earmark is for the Main Street project.
right.
Right.
And that I was going to apply to the Gaming Commission for funding to keep in reserve
Right.
for the Allen and Summers Road project.
Right, but again, we're kind of in, I think, still discussion about the proper, if you want to say, whether the Allen Street one is needed.
Right.
Could we then look at this gaming money as a way, if we run, oh my gosh, it's going to take another 120 to do the north side, could we supplement that bond money with gaming money?
Or
Is
could
that where
we,
you're going?
or that, or could we, does that bond money have to be used for the Main Street?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
that part,
That
yeah.
was my question there.
It does say.
But it
Main
didn't say
Street.
which
It
side.
does use
Right.
the word
Yeah.
Main Street in
So,
the,
yeah.
in the transportation bill.
Sure. Okay,
We could always
next,
change,
document.
we could always change it to Main Street Extension, Allen Street. That section there.
Did you find an old map where it was called Main Street? Sure. I think it was called Springfield Street back in the
Yeah,
day,
no.
Allen Street.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. So document system.
Well, I've had a conversation with Mr. Cadman, who is the representative for this region of Massachusetts. And what they propose is that we adopt a cloud-based service, which is intended for smaller communities. They said the Rio proposal was for larger communities. This would be a cloud-based service. They would come, provide training. They will also, for a price, do the scanning, which I didn't explore with them, but my thought was that once we secured the funding, and if we were going to go forward with the Laserfish program, that we would accept the training and then have one of our own employees, or I should say hire someone to do the scanning of the older documents. The advantage of Laserfish is that every department will have an icon on their desktop, and they'll be able to not just search in a particular file, it searches the entire database. So if I put in John Flynn, they will search the entire database and come up with every document where your name is listed or involved. And I think that,
You say that, but that involves a measure of OCR, which is a little different than just scanning images into a database. Unless you're putting keywords and tagging, I don't see what they have done. I just don't, that's not.
they have said that
A lot of that new stuff reads the
Reads
document.
Other than that, the
keywords,
OCRs and then, yeah.
keywords and tagging, I believe, is like the Microsoft approach to that. I was told that their data is searchable across documents and across folders.
Probably true if it's computer-generated documents, but any handwritten stuff would be image-based only.
Handwritten, yeah.
Yeah.
So I
So-
did print out a
Right.
sheet and gave you.
Yeah, last time we had a question about the cost, I believe.
And
We
what
didn't-
there are two different services that they
Right,
offer for the
almost-
price difference.
It just didn't look,
So we're looking at 14,000 to establish the system
right?
and to provide the training. And the annual service fee is 5,000.
For cloud,
We
for
have-
cloud storage?
We have 75,000 in grant funding. So we would take the 14, we'd establish the program, and we would then approach the scanning process, ask for bids for that, and compare that against having someone come and do the scanning. Their advantage here is that they will provide the indexing. They will
And all the land going down to the Scantic in the front,
You want to mute
Mass
Ted?
Audubon, is gonna be taken over by Mass Audubon. But someone's got to
Can you mute
monitor,
Ted,
even though
please?
Mass Audubon is environmental, they have to be second checked.
Yep,
So it falls to Concom.
so, oh, it would fall to you?
Yeah.
And not the.
Go down to Ted.
trust?
No, it falls to Concom. So I'm telling.
That's
Brett,
Ted.
someone's
I
gonna
know, he's trying to mute him. He should be able,
I'm not seeing anybody who is not, oh,
Ted,
here we are.
Ted.
and
There he is,
that
right
has to
there.
be all-
thank you.
Okay.
All right, so there is an additional, if we hire them to do the work, then there's a cost on top of that.
They will provide the software and the system
Right,
and the training,
right, for
as
14.
well as they provide the entire format for you. They said they will come in and say, here's the way your files should be organized. And they will do that department by department. Because the planning department and the building department have files that are often very large.
Mhm.
My thought would be we would ask them for a quote for those departments, because they've got the capacity, the large format scanning capacity, to add those kinds of documents. See what that quote is, and see what it would cost to go forward with them versus hiring someone on our own to do it department by department.
All right, one thing that was talked about last time was, our question, I think it had to do with more the user base fee, which seemed not equivalent. So the 5,000 you're talking about would be a license fee for the cloud usage, doesn't matter how many people in town access the cloud.
Actually, this would allow up to 100 licenses.
For 5,000.
The cloud service would allow
Now-
up to 100 licenses.
Storage number is what?
Sorry?
How many gigabytes, how many
How much
terabytes?
storage would we have? Cloud
That is, that's not restricted. I was not told that it was restricted.
That's unusual.
It doesn't, well, I mean, what they basically understand that the size of the community is important.
I understand, but I mean, every other cloud service I use, whether it's Dropbox or whatever,
they have
there's
a
a,
res-
you
they
know,
have a
there's a,
restriction.
yeah. So
We haven't,
What's the
they may say
security-
in their experience, a small town like this, oh, easily the tier we're in might work.
What's the security like too for cloud storage on their end?
what's the,
Security like on their end for cloud storage?
they have a very secure system.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed that, plus redundancy.
You actually talked to them, Bob?
I did,
Would they be willing to present to us?
sure.
That way maybe we can get answers straight from them,
I can set that up for,
whenever you're back,
well, after,
Oh,
after
these
the
are
first of
the-
the year.
yeah.
Okay, the pain, what would be the pain? Risk, yeah, okay. Yeah, huh. Interesting comment.
Okay, so how does South Hadley figure into this?
They would get a separate system, separate $14,000 system.
That's out of the.
And that's out of the 75, is that out of the 75?
75,000
Okay.
would go for two separate systems.
All right.
I talked to them about a shared service, and they said that if we did a shared service, we'd have to do the Rio system.
Which is expensive.
Because that's what they've been doing in other places. They said the shared service is not something that they think has a big future. That this kind of cloud-based system for each community seems to be the sensible way to do it.
Okay, how does ongoing work though? So after they go ahead and punch it all up there and then on a daily basis, we have more paper we want to put up. Is there a unit here that each department goes in and takes a turn organizing?
We have training for departments.
Right?
We have the organization of files.
Mm-hmm.
What about the hardware, Bob?
And the choice would be either to buy a large professional system on a cart, which we could roll around, or each department could use their own scanner.
Well, except for the large format. I mean, you look at building and planning and Concom, they get rolls all the time. Would we also need to
do.
get a large scale scanner for them?
So we're not,
More and more developers, though, are willing to send
Digital?
their stuff electronically to the building department.
sure, but that doesn't help us in the past. So this Laserfish doesn't include any hardware. There's no
not.
physical
Does not
machine.
include hardware.
So that's additional cost on top of
That's an
the
additional cost.
13 or whatever.
So the 14 installation thing is just all labor at this
Correct.
point.
It's all back end.
Training.
And we don't have a co-
And we would have a choice of either using our existing scanners, and I think most departments have them, or to have a larger professional scanner that we would move around from department.
I
to
thought that's what we
department.
had talked about originally, was getting this all-in-one
Yeah, we have,
inclusive
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I was under the impression we were
If-
still
and if-
searching.
But if we buy the bigger one, they could still use the ones they have,
They
right?
could.
You know, for other
Yes.
smaller documents, you know.
They made it very clear on the phone that what most towns are doing, and they just signed a contract with Long Meadow. They've got Agawam. They have a number of other they have 50 communities in Massachusetts. That they think that the future is individual offices with their own scanners, scanning documents into the system.
right.
as opposed to having the big machine. I mean, we're going to have enough funding that we could purchase new hardware, either additional office scanners where needed, or to buy a large professional scanner on wheels.
So the 75,000 includes basically buying 2 setups, one for us, one for South Hadley?
Correct.
And are we obligated to use the 75 for the annual fee for them, or is that their budget?
Well, we haven't discussed that.
I mean, we're all good friends here, but
I know.
hey, you know.
I have a meeting with them set up for right after the new year. We had a meeting last week. We're gonna have another meeting with their IT people and their town administrator right after the new year. That's something to be discussed. I do think we will have an abundant amount of funding to get done what we want to get done, both communities.
2 questions. Could this take the place of the OneDrive? Since
Yes.
it's a cloud storage?
Yes, it will.
Okay. And
Yes.
what about our,
I talked to them about that. And,
so we could actually have a spot on here
yes,
with limited access?
limited access is also part of their system. We could limit each department to access for the files of that department. Or we could allow selectmen to have access to.
So it's a rights-based structure at that
Yes,
point?
it is.
Okay.
What if South Hadley doesn't want to use what we're using? And there's cost more?
We talked about basically the cloud service. First of all, because of the expense. I mean, it's 14 versus the on-premises system is significantly more expensive.
When are they expecting an answer from you? When you return, or?
I told them that this is being discussed at the level of selectmen and that I don't know when we'll make a final decision.
Okay. Does the board have a question they want Bob to get an answer to before we make a decision?
Well, Craig has suggested that after the new year, that we bring the company in from Rochester.
Just to give us a
over
presentation.
Zoom
Great.
To
And
answer any other questions.
I would like more clarity. I think Craig has a good point about replacing the OneDrive, but I really would like specifics on that. Again, who's controlling it?
Because
et
the
cetera.
OneDrive is not backed up right now as it is.
Right.
So if we lose anything, I think this is all backed up.
Okay,
We would
so,
certainly just move those files right into the system.
okay, so when you return from the Kiwi land, let's touch on that. Okay. Thank you, Bob. Okay, we have a lot of people waiting here. Quickly, do we have anything for correspondence that need to be done before we get into the, no? No. We did receive correspondence that I'd like the board to consider and then pencil for addressing at a later meeting. Correct?
Yeah,
From the citizen?
Which one? Oh,
The citizen one?
from Mr. Sibilia?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, you good with that?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Where'd Doug go?
It's outside with the superintendent.
Oh, for crying out loud. Secret meeting, Doug? Huh? Pre-meeting, secret meeting?
Go on in.
Okay, yep. Do you want to take up here, Doug, so we're on mic?
There's glitter everywhere, Doug.
Glitter.
The glitter fairies are here.
That should be live. So welcome, everybody, to the annual, what I used to call the State of the Union Address, which is our kickoff meeting for the FY '24 budget year. As you know, those who've been here in the past, we typically first go around the room, everybody introduce themselves. Not that we all don't know each other, but it's an opportunity now that we're in this digital age, we have people on Zoom, they can put a face to the name. Now, we have a microphone system where you need to either step up to the podium to be heard. If you have a presentation, we have seats available at the table. But if you're going to be sitting back there and talking about your upcoming budget needs, people are not going to hear you. And we really would like to have the opportunity for everybody to know what's going on. So, having said that, we'll do the introductions and you guys can just yell loudly. Is that one on, Craig?
Yes.
That's, we'll slide back
Well,
forward.
but,
So,
Can we get those
What?
ones like Madonna wears, you know?
Let's introduce
Oh, Craig Rivers, Board of Selectmen.
John Flynn, Board of Selectmen.
Oh, Don Davenport, Board of Selectmen. Can't they pass it down?
Aaron Osborne, Hampden Wilbraham Schools. We're just introducing?
Just
Yeah,
introduce.
just
Yep.
Okay.
You can save the big talk for later, Aaron.
Okay.
Do you have slides? No. Okay.
Sure, John Provost, Hampden Wilbraham School.
Can't they?
Just yell, Cliff, that's fine. Cliff Bombard, Town Accountant.
Ellen Moriarty, Director of the Library.
Scott Trombley, Chief of Police.
Kelly McCormick, Principal Assessor. Bonnie Giardini, Conservation.
Bruce Marble, just a citizen sitting in. Mark Langoni, Highway Department.
Becky Moriarty, Senior Center.
Doug Boyd, Advisory Committee.
Bob Markle, Town Administrator.
Okay, thank you all. So just a quick overview. We have some things coming up first off, thank everybody for what they've done in FY '23. We're only halfway through the year, but right now the year's looking pretty good. Typically in the past, this is not a rehash of what's going on in the current fiscal year. You always have an opportunity to do that by attending a selectmen's meeting, going to the town administrator, sending us an email. That's for the current year. This meeting is about what we expect, what we see for needs, wants, concerns in the upcoming budget year. We'll have an opportunity to share our thoughts. The advisory will share their thoughts, what they're looking for budget submittals. And then we'll go around the room and ask for each department to give us a quick 5-minute update, if you will, on what they see for the upcoming fiscal year. Quickly, from our standpoint, the town of Hampden is extremely fortunate that we're in good financial shape. We have really reduced our debt load appreciably over the past couple of years. And we have an incredible staff working to serve the needs of the people. Bottom line, we're in good shape, and it's really due to the people in this room, and we thank you all. I'll quickly give it over to Craig and Don for a quick thought on next year, and we're very eager to hear your concerns for the upcoming year.
I want to hear from them.
This is a change for Don, and we really appreciate that. Thank you.
I actually have a list, but we'll share it at some point. I gave it to the selectmen. I have a list of, I don't know, 5, 8.
Things we have on, some of those will be shared during department staff meetings by Bob. Some will email out to you, but right now we're interested in hearing, as Don said,
Yeah.
from you. Doug, your thoughts?
Well, thank you. Nice to see everybody again. It's going to be a regular event.
Annual.
We are using the same budget sheet, which we've been using for several years now. We would ask everyone to complete this and get it to us as soon as possible, but we would like it no later than 1 week before our scheduled meeting. I don't know, Pam, did you send out the proposed schedule yet, or? No, that's fine. We have not, okay. We have a proposed schedule which we will be sending out to everybody, which has dates to meet with advisory. If those dates don't work for whatever reason, obviously let us know, and we continue to be as flexible as we can with the different departments. Sure, anybody that doesn't have one. In terms of the budget forms, the biggest issue will be salaries. We're asking everybody to use the salary charts when you complete your budget request. We anticipate having a discussion between the select board advisory, the accountant and the treasurer with regards to what the COLA will be. Obviously, inflation continues to be an issue. We'll make a determination sometime probably in March or early April as to what that COLA will be. after we've come to a consensus. So for purposes of the budget, please just use the salary chart and the steps. We would ask if anybody is contemplating a change in grade, to make sure you bring that to Bob as the town administrator, run through that process, make sure it complies with the requirements of the salary study. Other than that, I don't think there's anything particularly dramatic. Just keep doing what you're doing. We will meet with you. Carol and I make ourselves available. I think everybody knows how to get a hold of us. If not, certainly people at this table do. We are, while I'm here, I'll say we are still looking for a clerk. So if anybody happens to know somebody looking to be clerk of advisory, we're taking applications. All right, thank you.
Generous benefit program,
The best.
the
Yes.
best, really.
Yes.
Okay. So we want to go around the room and ask different departments to share their thoughts for the FY '24 year, any needs they have. We typically like to leave the schools to the end because we like to feel happy up until you guys talk. So I'm going to start at the other end. The other end. No, sit here. I mean, these ones work, so that's fine. Wow.
Hello.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening and welcome. Oh. So things are great at the Senior Center. I'm sorry, I have my back to all of you, fine folks. Things are really, really good, and we are very happy about that. We are looking forward to the next calendar year, let alone the next fiscal year. So some things that we have on the horizon, certainly our building project is out there. I know that's not part of this budget necessarily, but it is something that we're looking at. I don't think we have any real major needs or issues that are going to come up in the next fiscal year. There might be a slight adjustment in some hours, staffing hours, but I don't see any major issues. We have had a couple of small issues just recently this week with the parking lot. So we may have to talk about maybe involving highway, if they could patch a couple of spots for us. But I don't know if that'll be something that we'll do this fiscal year or if it will wait until the next fiscal year. But other than that, things are really great. And I don't foresee any major budget adjustments.
Would you say that the thought of, or the expansion part is really weighing on your mind for any other things that might come up? Like, in the past we talked about, oh, there's heating upgrades needed, but really with the other thing, the talk of an expansion, that's kind of in abeyance right now.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly do have some HVAC issues. They're not anything that needs to be addressed right at this moment. But I think if the project goes forward, it would be the right time to do that. If the building project does not go forward, then I think we will have to look at some of those issues. Septic pump controls, roof, and HVAC would probably be the top three that we would need to look at if it's not, put into any type of expansion.
Okay, great. Super.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mark? Brought his water. He's going to be there for a while, I think. Jeez.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. So far this year, we're doing well. We've got our road projects wrapped up for this season. We've got one
next year.
Oh yeah, okay, next year. So, and foreseeable things for next year, I may look to increase a couple of accounts. Our highway, our general highway. Reason being on that is licenses, reimbursements, clothing allowances, stuff like that are going up. The other account would be the road machinery maintenance. Reason being on that would be, increasing costs of repair and maintenance of vehicles, parts, so on and so forth. I didn't look back to see how long we've held those numbers in those accounts, but I can safely say it's been at least 6 years since I've started. So I'm not looking to go crazy with those accounts, just maybe try to boost them up to
Basically,
to help out a little
keep
bit.
pace with inflation, basically, or?
Pretty much, yeah.
Any capital needs you see at this point? Where are we with the fleet? if you will?
So, for those of you that don't know, we did get our CO for our building addition last week. So we're all moved in, and now that that's done, I want to try to get back to business as usual as far as replacing trucks. I did want to try to replace a dump truck next year. I've got a quote already, preliminary quote for that. And it's actually not as bad as I thought it would be. But this will be just a straight dump truck replacement, nothing fancy with a plow, no built-in.
What's not bad, Mark?
215.
That's not bad.
So a dump truck that's a dump truck with a stainless steel body and a highway plow.
That actually is. That's surprisingly compared to what we paid 3 or 4 years ago. I don't think it's gone up. Well, can you take the chip out of the old truck? Yeah, right.
What was the year of the old one that you want to replace?
The old one is a 1993 Mack with 117,000 miles on it.
Okay.
Um,
Is that the oldest in the fleet?
Currently it is, yes.
All right. Any other equipment to replace or?
Not yet. No.
Not yet.
I foresee perhaps maybe a lawnmower in the fall town meeting or next fiscal year. Possibly a new roadside tractor, but
Your other major account obviously is paving. And we currently fund that hopefully at 250 annually plus, some money in your other account. Do you consider that enough with state money as well for your plans for next year? Adequate, I should say? Or you don't know based on what projected increases might be?
I can't say for certain right now, but I'm actually glad you brought that up. I meant to make a note of that when I got here. I know that to keep up with, again, with inflation and cost of materials and stuff like that. And I know we were talking about in years past, trying to get that 250,000 back closer to the 300,000. So I might ask, I can only ask for an additional 50,000 on the paving. It would help. It would help. I don't see an increase in Chapter 90 in the foreseeable future. And I can't rely on the winter recovery assistance program on an annual basis. That's kind of a few and far between. It's been several years since we
Like
had
the
anything.
pothole money, maybe yes,
Correct.
maybe no, you never know.
Exactly. Yes. Yep.
Well, salt and sand going in the future.
Well, that would be under the snow and ice. So I think, it has gone up, $10 a ton. Again, kind of unpredictable as to what might happen.
But again, like you said, it's not in the budget per se because it's in the overdraft account. Right.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Carrying
Okay.
on snow and ice now. We had 90. Is that what we're carrying as the line on snow and ice?
It's 100.
I thought it was like 150, was it?
No, that's what we get to. But I thought it was in the 110, 120 number, no? 100?
Okay, I know, because we've been pushing that number up over the years.
Yeah.
Are you still interested in the highway clerical position?
I've been putting a lot of thought into that since the last time we discussed it for fall town meeting. And
Yes or no?
No. No, I don't think it's a good time I think some logistics need to be worked out, and don't think I'm ready for that right
But things
now.
may change as we go. I mean, we got a ways to go to town meeting
Absolutely,
yet. Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Madison?
Get your-
My first budget meeting.
Hmm?
This is my first budget meeting.
Oh, welcome.
Everybody knows how exciting the planning board is. No changes there. We don't anticipate any changes to our expenses from previous year, and the salary, I think, has already been set based on the chart. The only thing that could potentially come up is the master plan, and if there's additional funding needed for that, and we just got our RFQs back, so we need to start that process of reviewing them and establishing our master plan committee.
What was the additional figure you got for the master plan? I mean, is this,
We haven't reviewed it yet, so
okay.
yeah.
How about
But we do
bylaw?
have a grant for $75,000.
Got a grant for
right?
75,
Mhm.
and what we've been hearing is that around the area, you're looking at bouncing on 90 to 6 figures.
Okay. How about other things for town meeting? Are you looking at any bylaw changes or?
Yep, we're looking at one, I don't think it's a bylaw change, but we had a note about just a discrepancy in our planning board documents with, just a conflict with the zoning board of appeals.
Mhm.
We'll get that pulled together.
Well, of course, another pet thing I think we've talked about is some resolution on Kibbe Lane in the near future, hopefully.
Yep.
You know, we have one unaccepted road that I signed the plan for back in 2004. So we don't want that 20-year anniversary. So something.
Yep.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bonnie? Unless Ted wants to speak, which way do you want to go?
Hi.
Hi.
The Conservation Commission probably has the smallest budget in town. It hasn't really changed. Office supplies, $550, and our MACC membership is $630. And then my salary, that's it.
Mhm.
Whenever we have large projects like the Glendale Solar or Amoresco at the land, at the dump, and we hire consultants for that is paid for by the proponents.
Mhm.
You know, it's checks in and checks out, and that doesn't really affect our budget at all.
Okay, I know that Bob has been working on a plan for shared service or a conservation.
Correct. We have a plan nearly ready with Town of Ludlow to share a conservation agent. There would still be a need for some of the work that Bonnie does. We've also applied for a $72,000 grant, and I expect that that'll be approved.
That's to pay for the agent.
That would pay for the agent probably in the first year, maybe a little bit of money left over. But I think we're in a situation now with the Commonwealth that if you say shared service, they say, here's the check. So,
Yeah. But not for a sidewalk. Thanks.
no.
Right. So, and then just quickly, while you're here and Ted's here, we do hope to hear from you on that CR question that came up earlier. You know, a chance to talk to you about that.
Right, yeah, Judy Brewer's on that. She, you know, as you know, she's on the Minichog Land Trust. Yeah, is that the one you're talking about?
No, the lady
Oh,
about the
you're talking
Audubon,
about
the Audubon.
The Audubon.
Audubon and,
Would you say her characterization was correct, that the board was amenable to this type of thing?
well, the conservation was very much so.
Okay, good.
Probably she did assume that.
Yeah.
No, she did.
Yeah,
She thought it presented well to you and you were very receptive to it.
yes, and
Yeah.
as far as having someone go out once a year or once every few years to do a report, Audubon, was going to, give the town $6,000 to use, for at least a couple of those reports that will be done. Because we're certainly not at that level of expertise to go out there, and I don't know if she showed you an example of the report, but it's a pretty decent sized
Sure.
paper, so.
All right. And they're used to it.
And, well, that's what they do.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Or part of what they do.
Sure.
So they were gonna give the town money, $6,000
Mhm.
to pay someone for a couple of times.
Okay.
Go out and do that, but yeah, and it will go before the, land trust as well, I believe. I'm not certain on that, because, Doug, you would know, right? No?
Not necessarily.
Because the land trust, would ultimately, I believe, be involved with that, through the conservation commission. But I'm not.
I didn't see the land trust involved in it. I didn't see the land trust involved. I thought it was strictly
It's Audubon. wrote it.
Audubon and Bedrock had the other CR.
Yeah, they do.
Right. I didn't see the land trust project might be a
So
different
So I'm not sure.
project, I think.
Maybe I got.
I think you may be thinking of the Hickory Lane
Lane.
project. That might be it. The end of Hickory Lane, that other project that they're working on.
Yeah, that's the other one.
That's the other
I'm
one,
thinking
yeah. Because I think there's a CR there because of the riverfront part down, was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
of. I don't know. So.
So much happening, good.
So that's that, and, so as far as the, salary is concerned, you know, I have no idea what to put in there, as far as the agent that's gonna be hired and all that, so, I'll need that information before I.
Right.
Do you have a sense of when you'll hear on that grant?
I don't. It was submitted a month ago, and it's very hard to predict. Each agency seems to have a different pace in terms of making those decisions.
And how many hours a week?
We would split 60-40, and that would give the town roughly 15 hours a week.
15 hours a week?
15 more than we have now. There you go, for free. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
But that's not a hard figure, by the way. That is something to be discussed further. Just how many hours we need. So if you think that's not enough, I think we can probably work an arrangement for more like 20. But ultimately, after the grant monies go away, that would mean the town's obligation from the general fund would be greater.
Great.
I think that's appropriate, you know, because I put in, well, depending on the week and what's going on, 12 to 14 hours a week. So 15 more would need on that.
Great. Okay, is it, who's standing up for assessors? It's a much better choice. Thanks, Bob.
Good evening. The assessor's office does not anticipate any additional expense lines needed for fiscal year '24. We do know that we received the quote already for the utility appraisals. Will remain the same as fiscal '23. And our mapping and our CAMA system maintenance will just be the minimal annual increases. But we do have a recertification year for fiscal year '24, which we've been planning for. We did appropriate some money for it last year. So we're just going to have to wait now until we receive the quotes. We're just reaching out now to get quotes.
Okay. Great.
Other than
And
that,
quickly, good job on the tax rate this year, the work that the assessors department did. And even after our meeting the other day, you still dropped it a penny after that. I'm like, when's it going to end? Seriously.
Well, thank you.
Bob, does the map have anything to do with the increase in the mapping? You said earlier in the meeting that they're increasing the
GIS.
GIS.
Yes.
Does that go to their account or?
2,400 a year to 3,000.
That go to, under their account or some other account?
That would be, Kelly sent me the letter today with that increased message.
Yeah, that's separate from what the assessors budget for. So we budget for the mapping maintenance. That's for the actual access online. So that's separate, and that's actually sent to the selectmen. So I sent that over to Pam. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was, had remained at, I believe it was 2,400 because it,
24 to 3.
24 to 3, yes, because Hampden had been grandfathered in when they made the changes, but now they're updating the price for all of the communities that had the older, yeah.
Your grandfather died.
My grandfather had died.
Nice. Bob, anything to add? Building department.
Hi, I'm Wendell. I'm the building commissioner. We're plugging along steadily. I don't anticipate any large increases in the next fiscal year.
Okay.
There's a new code that's going to be dropping, so maybe some more reference material, but I'll figure that out and add it in. Other than that, we've been doing really well. Everybody's happy.
Great.
Busy, busy, busy too, for some reason.
Good. Thank you.
Thank
Thank the
you.
guys. Thank Karen. Okay.
Good evening, Scott Trombley with the Police Department. Police Department's stable, for the most part. Some bumps in the road, but getting through it.
Scott, I want to thank you. I know you had a conference today you had to be at, and I thank you for coming back here for this.
Well, I'm going back, but I
know,
haven't
but still, you
actually.
came
but,
here, you-
yeah, this is very
He's got a
important to be
helicopter
here, so.
outside.
Oh, really? Wow.
The town helicopter.
The town
Don't worry
drone?
about that.
Yeah, right, okay.
Got a drone, you've been keeping an eye on me, huh?
Nice.
All right, so moving forward, fiscal year budget 24, we got a few things coming up. Looking to meet the contractual obligation of the raises for the union members. The department's 6 years old. Seems to be good around. We've had some lighting issues with which I thought was new lighting. A refrigerator in our cell block is starting to have a problem with the temperature control. Not too much, but if that unit were to go out, it's a hefty bill. Hopefully they
Our
just.
new police station is already 6 years old.
Yes, 6 years old already.
Did you say there's a refrigerator in the cell block?
Yeah, so that's where you would have like sexual assault kits handled and stuff like that. So that has to be up in the cell block area for evidence. And any
Okay,
type of-
Craig thought in the cell there was a fridge. Like
Oh, no, no.
Put them on ice.
Sorry.
Like, what's going on in there?
So hopefully that won't be a major repair coming in, but we're looking at it right now. Looking to go with a full-time officer. We have a swing shift, 7 p to a 3 in the morning shift. As we know, we spoke about in the past, our reserve officers program is dwindling. We started in 2021 with 12 reserves. We lost 3 in June 30th of 2022 due to retirement. They chose not to bridge with the bridge program. I'll be losing another 3 this June 30th. And that's one of the reasons why we had asked for Jim Gormley to have the special legislation passed, which is moving forward rather quickly. He's not able to be working yet, but once it's passed, he can. So that'll leave us with about 6 reserve officers. We have been experiencing some of our third shift coverage not being able to be filled. I've had a couple of our officers try to use a holiday or a comp day. These other officers that are reserve officers are full-time somewhere else and do try to make it in when they can, but sometimes I just don't have enough reserves to go around. There's not a lot of individuals out there that want to continue being police officers, unfortunately. So the retention and just trying to find them is not out there. The ad's been out for approximately 6 months and I really haven't had anybody come over.
An ad for reserves, is that what you said?
That's River Reserve Officer. So I do think it's time to look to where we're looking to go as another full-time officer to help. If someone were to call out sick, someone to use a holiday or a comp day, we could actually go to a minimum manning for that.
You said you were looking to do, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I said you were just looking to do 7 p.m. until.
No, yeah,
a different shift than what you currently have?
So yeah, so this would be like a split shift we'd be covering for our second shift and our third shift. Currently, our detective,
Yeah.
who's on our day shift, we're up to full staff, helps out with any overflows. It can be a fill-in. So I'm looking to sort of do that for that second and third shift. In the
So it's
near
just a
future,
crossover.
depending where we go with the reserve program falling right out, you'd be looking to maybe add another full-time officer after that in the years coming to stabilize the police department for a minimum manning.
Is this shortage due to the post-commission regulations, the new?
Yes. Yeah, so the regulations that did come out via post has hurt a lot of agencies with their part-time reserve officers. Just looking to add some more specialized training, our active shooter training with other communities. More monies in that area. A couple more instructors. We do have an instructor for CPR firearms. I'd like to see 2 instructors with a firearms classes. We should have 2 people out there in the range when we're doing firearms. So looking to recertify somebody else there. We have 1 more officer that will bridge, which will help us. And then we'll be done with our bridging of any of our officers. We had spoke about that. It was around that $7,500 to $8,000 mark for that officer to bridge, and that is a future full-time member too down the road. This officer is interested in bridging, getting certified, and then coming onto our agency as a full-time member. So it does work if you do get the individuals to bridge. I will be losing my secretary early July. Administrative assistant, which is going to be a tough one. Big shoes to fill there. Been around for 26 years with the Hampden Police Department. I do have someone in-house currently that has been working with her, and that person may be someone that will be able to handle that position for us. We're gonna have some serious talk after the new year to see if she definitely wants to. She shows interest and has been helping with the budget on a weekly with Kathy. So that'll be a tough one, but if this transition works out the way it's been working, hopefully it won't be as tough as it could be.
So there'll be some type of retirement payout there for unused sick time or?
So that with Kathy's a non-union member, there'll be some small payment that will be coming into the new fiscal year, yes. Currently, I'll be having a retirement which will be in this budget, will be in March, but other than that.
Will that leave us a hole then in the counter person, the clerk position?
I will be able to try to move the 2, what we have now. I think we probably could make it work with what we have. So I don't think, I can maybe add more hours on one of them and then put that other clerk into Kathy's position, and we should be able to make that work.
Will that affect the budgeting though, if that one person takes on more hours?
It could, correct.
As far as?
As more
benefits and stuff?
more towards that full-time position.
Yeah.
Kathy's a 30-hour position.
20 now.
Right, but if he's over the cap, then he's gonna bring him another bracket.
You're already at the 20,
I thought it was like 24, 20.
no, I think 20
20,
qualifies him for
26
benefits.
20?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Which is, I think, what we,
People are pensioned now.
Okay,
yeah,
If anything, what Scott's saying will decrease the budget.
okay.
right. Because the other person will now take, 2 doing 3, really.
If it works,
If
right,
it
we'll
works,
have to
yeah.
see how that's moving
Okay.
forward. Other than that,
Okay,
we're good.
okay, great.
Thank you.
Get back in the helicopter. All right, good.
Horses.
Hi, I'm Ellen Moriarty from the library. We're having a great year. We don't anticipate any major needs or issues. Our programming is going great. Our circulation is up, and our staffing is awesome.
Does the funding you get from the state have anything to do with circulation? If your circulation's up, I mean?
A little
Should
bit.
come down
We
and
just
take out
got
books or-
notified that we were certified by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. I have to meet a certain criteria to be compliant with their municipal appropriation requirements. And so it's a small factor, but it's always great when we used to get a nice certificate with a big fancy gold seal on it. Now we just get an email. that says you're certified.
Budgets.
So that's always good to see that we're on track with the state. And we're just very fortunate to have such a generous community between community donations, the Cultural Council, and the Friends of the Library. They fund all of our programming. So we're really grateful for that too. So we're cruising right along, doing great.
Great, thank you.
Dick Patel, Town Treasurer, nothing's happening to affect the budget.
Cliff, you got anything that affects the budget?
Cliff says the same thing.
Good.
Thank you, the financial team. Oh, boy. Ed, you want to step up before the school, please? Late to the game.
How you doing? Ed Poole, Fire Department. So I have some emails out to vendors to see if there's any increase in costs for maintenance of trucks, equipment. Haven't heard anything back yet. I do have that one engine 2 that I'd like to renovate the back of, get the electric spreaders, cutters in there, get the hydraulic ones out.
Yep.
We also do have the generator ordered for the station. That should be coming in June. That was paid through some funds from the state. But there'll be additional cost of electrical hookup, small cost.
Mhm.
that I see.
Then also, the new truck you had been awarded through
Oh, yeah,
FEMA?
fire truck.
Wasn't there a part that had to be matched from the town? And-
Yes, it's just around 10,000, don't quote me. I think
Right,
it's-
so do you think that truck
Yeah.
will be arriving in the future fiscal year?
Yes, we have a truck meeting this evening. We have 2 vendors coming. We're going to set up an appointment for 2 vendors come in. But I think we will be, hopefully. I'll have more information on that in a month or so.
So you think it'll be after July we'd see it? But that would matter, like, where we're gonna get that money.
It's not a huge truck, so I'm not sure until we meet with them, the availability of the chassis and the truck themselves.
Right.
As we've all witnessed with vehicles, they'll tell us when it comes and we keep our fingers crossed.
Mhm.
With anything nowadays, parts or anything goes, that we just don't know the supply chain.
So potentially, if it is supplied after July 1st, a warrant article to appropriate, our matching part would be appropriate.
I think once we pick the vendor to build that truck or
Mhm.
manufacturer to build that truck, they'll give us a delivery date, and that's the
Mhm.
only time I can answer that question
Right.
accurately.
But there is a part from the town, a financial part of the town incurred with this
Correct.
grant. Okay. Great. And?
The grant was for how much?
230.
230?
Yeah.
And our share will be about 10,000?
Yeah, I think it's, yeah.
Good enough. 5%, nice.
I can get you that. I think we talked about that.
Yeah,
just like
right.
Bob.
Yeah. Great.
The only other thing that I think there's enough money in the call budget that I would like to give the call members raises. They haven't had a raise in over 5 years. And also possibly give them a minimum 2-hour call for some of the calls that come in. Again, I think there's enough money in our budget to do that. And I'll present that to the board at some point in the future.
Something to discuss. Good.
Mhm.
Great.
Anything else? Questions?
Our tanker looks okay. We're still good with that.
Tanker's operating pretty well. We had the pump pretty much rebuilt. I do have a repair. The pumps were all tested in the trucks last week. I do have a repair to do on engine 2, but that's this year's budget. So.
Okay. And good job last night, by the way, by the force. You guys presented very well.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
And we did meet with the architect. I know that.
Tectron, yep.
Yeah. I don't know if he's been in touch with the select board yet or not,
Yeah.
but that's moving forward as well.
I think the next step is he met with you. We're talking about an educational or informative or survey
2
part
meetings
next.
with the
Yeah.
public. Yeah.
Yep. So,
All right, thank you.
great. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. And now, the elephant in the room.
So seatbelts on. So school district has a fairly long list of budgetary pressures coming up this year. I'll try to go through a few of the major ones. First and foremost, which is actually stabilizing, is we've closed all 5 of our contracts recently. The challenge is, those all did happen during pretty intensive inflationary pressure. So, while the salaries will be stabilized for a few years, and I don't think we provide egregious increases, there are definitely COLAs there that impact the budget. Other items that are going to impact the budget are largely inflationary. So our energy costs are our energy costs. Everybody's, looked at electricity, oil. We don't use oil, natural gas. Good news, the lights at Minnechaug should be able to be turned off by January. So literally over the holiday week, while students are in school, we will literally be flipping the switch, figuratively and literally, to have control over the lighting. Our apologies. It's sort of a victim of over-engineering.
So for next fiscal year, I know you're doing a good
Yep.
job in the current
Yep.
fiscal year, and we actually have a question for you while you're here.
Yep.
Where do we stand with the switches?
Where do we stand with the switches?
Right.
We are getting ready to be able to order those.
Okay.
So Bill's been working with a vendor to get pricing and configurations on those.
Okay.
We'd like to have give you an update early January and be ordering them at that point.
Okay, we just want to be sure that it's still
Yep.
moving forward. All right, great.
Absolutely, it's
So
been hot
next
on our-
fiscal year.
Yep. So next fiscal year,
you got the contracts
inflationary
in hand?
continues. So one of the things we're also seeing is special education costs. Some of the costs of counseling services and things like that for our students have been increasing. COVID has not, the coming back from COVID has impacted that. So I think we're going to have a lot of pressure from our staff to continue some of the increases we've had under COVID in that sort of staffing. We've had a fair number of special education move-ins this past year, and special education is probably our biggest uncontrollable expense. When we have a student who moves in with high needs, they can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes, and we have no choice but to fund those needs. So some of those needs are definitely pressing. Additionally, the state approved a 14% increase to all out-of-district private placements statewide. So a fairly large part of our budget is those out-of-district placements. Proportionally, those are our most expensive students. And so, we have to be preparing for a 14% increase in that category, in addition to some pressure we've had with move-ins.
When you say move-ins, are they actual residents, or you also mentioned their
Is it school choice?
Actual residents, no. So an extremely high-cost school choice student would revert back to their home district. So for low and moderate cost special education students, we're able to actually charge back the costs to the home district, so we don't just get the $5,000 per student.
Oh, okay.
But then if a student were in an out-of-district placement, the cost would refer back to the fiscal authority, which would be their home district. So, it's, yeah, it kind of is what it is. Those are really our biggest. We have some significant capital costs coming up. If some folks have seen our capital plan, I'll be sharing that shortly with the towns. We are looking particularly for the town of Hampden. I think we have a need to replace some doors in Green Meadows. We're looking at those. There's always the talk of TWB. There's some parking lot needs there around the continued use of the building. District-wide, we have a lot of technology needs. Minnechaug in particular, so the switches were one item. We have, ongoing need to replace projectors and monitors in classrooms. We also have need to replace some of the wireless access points sooner or later. And then we are looking at consolidating both our phone and camera systems. So, we have six schools and we have 6 separate phone systems. We have 6 schools and we have 6 separate camera systems. So, having separate systems on all of those becomes difficult to manage, and it is a safety concern as well, right? Rather than just being able to pick up a phone and dial an extension, there's a lot more work into, for example, dialing our various schools and getting in touch with people. So in cases of an emergency. So our capital needs are considerably growing. You know, Minnetonka is over 10 years old now. You're gonna.
So when you talk about capital needs, and I understand the phone thing, and that makes sense, but do you prioritize that? I mean, that sounds like something you'd really like to do, but
Yeah.
is it a, you know, oh my gosh, drop dead, you have to do it type thing?
Yep. I think some of the doors and windows projects we would would elevate. Some of those are security issues. We have some doors and windows issues in Wilbraham as well. Some of the challenge with that is MSBA in their I forget the specific name of the program offhand, but it's their smaller size programs, which is up into the hundreds of thousands to millions for doors and windows and things like that. Is they're not taking proposals this year. So it's a dead issue for this year in terms of going to MSBA for funding for that sort of work. So, you know, I don't think we're in a position where we're in jeopardy if those aren't replaced this year, but they're definitely coming down the road.
I know that Gina had done quite a bit of work with the MagSafe type things in the past. Now, that wasn't replacing doors, that was just changing the opening mechanism or whatever for security. Is that grant type stuff available for an actual replacement as well, or no?
There's nothing I'm aware of that's available. The state has been talking about a school safety grant coming around. But John and I have frequently discussed wondering when that's going to come. The governor has promised it for quite a while. The clock is ticking on our current governor. So, you know, I'm wondering whether that's going to come across before January 1st when that rolls over.
As far as the technological updates go, is that something that's accounted for in the yearly budget? Whereas we should be refreshing and renewing on an annual basis? Yep. Not getting all smacked right at once?
No.
Is that something we account for now like that? Or?
One of the things that's going to come to, you know, a bit of a crashing halt in the future, and I didn't bring it up for this year, this coming year, because we have ESSER funds that will fund that, but we have a one-to-one program at the middle and high school level. So the middle school students here, the middle school students at Wilbraham Middle, and the Minnetonka students are part of a one-to-one program. That means that every student is provided with a Chromebook that they take home, they do all their work on, things like that. That is a program whereby we're looking at needing to replace 400 to 500 Chromebooks per year at a cost in excess of $300 per Chromebook. So down the road, once our ESSER funds run out, we are looking at $150,000 a year just to maintain that program. There has not been, most of the other IT-related items aren't as systemic and operational. So when I talk about access points, those have a lifespan of 8 to 10 years, give or take. Switches 7 to 9 years.
I was just saying, you know, how we know how fast technology upgrades and changes, you know, should it be thought about that we close that window down from 7 to 8 years so we're ahead of the game rather than, hey, we're going to need this chunk of money from you guys.
Right, and we are, so when I started here in 2020, there was no real sort of ongoing capital plan, and we've been working to build that. This year I've been working with Bill Powers to really make sure we get all of the technology items in there. So you will see the capital plan's bigger, there's more money in it, but I think we're covering a broader array of items. I'm also trying to include things regardless of the source of funds. So for example, I'm including the Chromebooks in it because it's not something we've budgeted for before and it's a big ticket item, but we know that we're going to cover that out of our ESSER funds for the next couple of years. It's a conversation piece, so we're recognizing we need to have a conversation about this in upcoming years, because if we don't, we're going to be in a little bit of trouble.
John?
Well, but now that you're here and you're still walking and talking after 6 months, why don't you give us a brief 5 minutes of how things are going for you? For 5 months, almost 6 months.
So hi, everybody, and all of the viewers on TV. It's been a great transition for me. We're implementing a couple of key priorities for me right now. One is called my entry plan, where I've been really getting to know all of the different agencies in the two communities and getting to know what's happening in the schools, in part by, for the older kids, shadowing students in grades 6 through 12. So I've been a student at each of those grade levels. And now I'm working my way through the elementary grades with a little bit of a different protocol because it would be somewhat overwhelming to have to deal with me all day long in a classroom. But I can tell you that the instruction I've seen has been very strong. We're in the context, as you may know, at the elementary grades of implementing 2 new core curriculums at the same time, which is a stretch for our staff, but they've been doing a great job with that. So it's a new math program and a new English language arts program. I was in a several kindergarten classes in both communities last Wednesday and quite impressed by what I saw. So at that point, it was the 58th day of school. I can tell you that the elementary kindergartners have mastered 14 letter sound combinations and are able to decode and spell words made with any combination of those 14 letters and sounds. In the math classes, they've really been developing a very strong geometric foundation. So they're identifying triangles, squares, rectangles, rhombuses, which is pretty sophisticated work for kindergartners to be able to do. So very happy with what's happening with those 2 math and ELA curriculums. Looking at the secondary level and looking just sort of at the results of the statewide accountability system last year, I would say that the district is high performing in the sense that it is in the upper half of student performance of all districts in the state. But our peer group of districts is a group of districts that's all high performing. So what I've been sort of focused on and challenging our committee and educators with is, so how do we become the exemplar within that group? So the top performing district in that group right now would be about in the top 20% of districts in the state. Which I think is a realistic goal for us, but we have some work to do to get there. Getting to that level, I think, would involve one of the priorities from the other thing, which I'll talk about, which is our strategic plan. So we're implementing the first year of a 5-year strategic plan. I think many of you may have been involved with that process. A key aspect of the strategic plan is developing aligned curriculum from pre-K through 12. So it's one thing to implement new core curriculums at the elementary level, but you have to follow that up. So right now we're setting up structures to align our curriculum going from pre-K through grade 12. I think that will be a really powerful lever because one of the most important things that predicts student achievement is what you're trying to teach them. And so getting some clarity around what we're doing and some continuity so that we can continue the instructional momentum from preschool all the way through will be important. Another thing that we've looked at is disaggregating student information by group, because not all of our students are performing at the same level. Not all of them are bouncing back from COVID in the same way. 2 groups of students that I'm particularly concerned about are, well, actually there are a number of groups of students. So some of the things we found were that male students aren't doing as well in English language arts as they could. There's quite a difference between male students and female students in general. And then in math and science, we're seeing almost the opposite, with the male students outperforming female students. So somehow syncing up, figuring out and syncing up that performance so that it's more equitable across the board. Looking at some students that seem to be having challenges across the board, students with disabilities in particular. I think they have a lot of potential for growth there. Also, Hispanic and Latino students not performing up to their potential. So really sort of have a special focus on those groups. But I'll just say that I've really been heartened by the welcome I've received from the communities, from all the agencies, from the staff and all of the buildings. So it's off to a really strong start. Looking forward to wrapping up my entry plan in the next few weeks and continuing to dig in on all of the implementation steps of the strategic plan, which is actually very ambitious. I counted them one day. There are 100 action steps to take over the next 5 years. I think we have made good progress on more than a dozen so far. So I think we're off to a good start, but still have a lot of work to do there.
I just want to echo what you said about the kindergarten and how they're progressing. My son in preschool, I see it there too, just how much they're able to consume and learn and the advancements they're making. I do have one little topic to question real quick. You know, Aaron had mentioned capital needs and he mentioned TWB. And do you foresee with the strategic plan coming out a higher use of that building because of the way the model is going to work with the strategic plan?
So I don't have any opinions about that at this time. I think that there are a lot of things that need to be sorted out in order to figure out how we may use our buildings to their optimal potential. I'm still too early on in the process to really give you a good answer to that.
Okay. Nicely done.
Thank you.
Non-committal. Thank you, John. Is there any department or group that didn't have a chance to speak either online or in person? Bob, do you have anything to say? Thank you.
He's in vacation.
Yeah, see that right.
Have a
Bob is
report.
actually heading to New Zealand next week to terrify the fish is the plan. So we can't wait to see the pictures when he gets back and the stories. So Doug, do you want to wrap anything up with this?
No, but before we leave the schools, there was a budget subcommittee earlier this evening, and the issue of a representative from the town to the strategic planning committee came up.
We
And there
did
was a
discuss that, and I think the board did make a decision at that point. At that point, the only one, Don had stepped out of the room at that point, so.
And it was a unanimous vote.
It was unanimous,
Okay.
exactly.
You have your representative. That's all I have.
Sucker.
We'll see.
Yeah. So that's it. Well, thank you, everybody. Those who, hopefully we'll see you all Wednesday. So. But the meeting goes on. Bob, do you want to do your town administrator report, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Go through
Merry
the report
Christmas.
quickly. You're up to date on Exton. They're making progress towards the program that they are committed to. They're going to do the first community meeting on January the 17th.
Is under the conservation.
Final sidewalk survey numbers are there. We are now engaged with National Grid, mostly Pam, in
Hang on,
trying to resolve the bond
Bob,
issue.
1 second, please. We got some side. Probably in a day or so. Thank you.
Anyway,
Okay, thank you. We'll talk Wednesday during lunch. There we go. Thank you. Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
Okay. Wondering if we should explore community choice aggregation? Town ever done that?
What is that?
That's where the entire community, on a volunteer basis, is enrolled in a program to purchase wholesale power.
Yeah, that, Pam can probably tell you, I think it was, I'm gonna say the selectman, Ken Elstein maybe, from the Hampshire Council came down a few years back to talk about that. So maybe you want to pull the notes from that time from Pam. Okay, let's see if, maybe refresh that. I don't know if you know, Ken, he was a selectman up there and then went to the Hampshire government, Hampshire County government at that time.
Just thought about that since prices for power are gonna go.
Right, it is, but then we also, I'm not sure if the Sincarfa thing precludes us doing that, so you may want to check that part as well. And then the fact that we're a host community for the Altus project also restricts you, like you can only choose from one shelf. You can't take them all. So, all right.
Okay, Shared Health Services meeting on November the 30th.
Mhm.
The participating community have no issues or complaints.
Okay.
Second year grant was approved.
So one thing I want to bring up to the board about that, we talked about things, and I know Craig has made a point of this before, and it's unfortunate Cliff has stepped out. We did away with the Board of Health revolving fund last year because of that, and I think that may have been premature.
Yeah.
Because there are expenses that are health-related that they're not going to cover. I know Craig wants to bring it forth for reconsideration at next town meeting.
Some testing and some other stuff that's coming.
Sure.
So bring it back then at the annual town meeting. Yeah, I
Bring it back. Yeah.
had some discussions about that also.
Sure, okay.
New town flags have arrived. One is already posted. And a second spare town
We have
flag.
another set?
I'm sorry?
Well, we put the new one up at the pole.
6 months ago?
The new one's
Yeah.
up.
And we have
There's a
another new one?
spare that's being kept in the selectmen, in the town administrator's office.
Right, but it said they have arrived. I mean, they arrived months ago, right?
I was just given the spare today.
So Eva probably just pulled it out.
So to make it to your office, it just got there.
The spare
Got there
just-
today.
Okay.
Okay, then, great. That's awesome. Thank you. Under lock and key.
White gloves.
All right.
All right, great.
Going on.
Yeah.
The town now has a SurveyMonkey account, as we discussed last week. Also, I know you're aware of this, but just for the information of the public, the Committee on Public Service has moved both home rule petitions for firefighter Hatch
Mhm.
and for Officer Gormley out of committee, currently in the clerk's office, and they'll go to the Steering and Policy Committee, so it looks like we're going to get action by the House and Senate on our petitions. The website upgrade has happened. We are still waiting for Audio I to be installed, but we also upgraded, if you want to take a look at one of the tabs on the town website at the very bottom,
Yep.
you'll see that we have made some changes in compliance with the standards that came from Boston.
Well, I see two things on there, ADA notice and grievance procedure, but
Yes.
I'm not quite sure what that does for handicap accessibility.
No, those are the notices that
Okay.
they wanted us to post on
Right.
the website. And then
Yeah.
secondly, Audio I will make it easier for handicapped people to use the website.
Okay.
And I've signed the contract on that
Mhm.
after the board voted to approve. And that is in the process of being implemented and
Okay.
installed.
All right. Speaking of the website, I do see we have the emergency notification portal, which was the Blackboard Connect, but we still have on there Notify Me, which is the Smart 911. Is that the same thing, or is that
it's gotta
needs
get
to be
taken down, I'm
deleted?
assuming.
Right, okay. So that was the old one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, possibly.
Once again, the moderator is suggesting that a member of the Board of Selectmen fill in and represent the town at the Veterans Regional District.
Yes, we're talking to the selectmen in Long Meadow to see if one of them can do it. He didn't say which town. I noticed that, yeah. Don, reach out to them. Well, you know.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We have had an issue with mice again, and we're trying to
Great,
correct it.
I'm
So,
sure.
Document management, we've
Yeah.
already discussed. Did do the survey on bottled water, which you'll see there. And training on the lift for all town employees is going to happen at
Thursday.
the next staff meeting.
Which is Thursday this week.
Correct.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Bob. Anything from the board members?
Nothing. I got nothing.
I got nothing.
We have a meeting, Bob, Pam, and I, with Whip City, just to get an update on Wednesday afternoon. Where they are.
You're still good with that, Bob? I know you wanted to switch Wednesday and Thursday.
No, I'm going to be on, I won't be physically present, but I'll be on those, there's 2 calls in the afternoon that I'll be on.
Hey, Bob, did you mention that you're actually attending a thing in Boston tomorrow?
Yes.
You did
I
mention
didn't
that?
mention it.
Okay.
But well, yes, they're having an event at the State House at 2 o'clock.
Right.
That I've agreed to attend because they want us to attend. Those who have received community compact grants, and the town has received this year 2, one for 75,000 and another one for 250,000. And so, since they've been generous with us, it's good to keep those fences mended.
Okay. Just see Don for gas money. He said he'd take care of it. Thank you,
I'll
Don.
give you Sophie's credit card.
You can plug it into your house. It's fine. No problem. So
It doesn't take gas. It's electric.
it's electric. There you
Also, I mentioned there's 2 programs in the afternoon that I'm going to participate with. One is the Whip City Fiber session, and the other is a program put on by the Gaming Commission about their next round. So,
Okay.
I've talked to the chief
That
of
on red,
police.
that's what they said.
Talked to the chief of police about getting some funds, which is a new program of the Gaming Commission, for bridge work and for other purposes.
Okay. Yeah, we do have a couple of bridge projects. I think we should schedule Mark for after the first of the year and get an update on those 2, both Rockadundy and
That was a heck of a segue.
the one on, well, so the one on South Road, which I cannot think of the name of the bridge, if they have a name for it. So, all right,
There's 3
perfect.
bridges where we're looking.
Well, and then of course those are the 2 the state will pay for.
Yes.
The other one we have to pay
Right.
for, and that's, yeesh. Laughing Brook, yeah. Okay, super. Thank you, Bob. If we don't see you for a couple weeks, have a safe journey.
Well, you will not be attending virtually then?
I will not be attending.
Virtually, our next meeting. Are we having our next meeting without Bob?
Yes,
My
we are. So
intention-
Bob is going to set up the agenda with Pam for next Monday
We're
night.
going to send up
12th.
the agenda
Right.
for next week.
Okay.
The 19th, he's leaving her on her own, which she's done for 10 years plus, so I don't think it's really going to be a real
It is my
problem.
intention to tune in virtually.
Right. And I would
the
anticipate
next
that the
meeting.
board, I would anticipate the board is thinking of canceling the meeting after Christmas. With a short week anyhow, the 27th.
Yeah.
27th, yeah. Obviously, because we had experience with this, it puts the pressure on Pam to make sure all licenses are signed on the 19th or earlier.
Sorry, I should have put them in front of you tonight. No. You have some licenses to sign.
I signed all mine
still.
last night.
You did, you've done a fabulous
There might be a
job.
couple for Don, like one
There are.
folder still had you. Yeah.
There are, that's swimming pool.
Yeah, but I mean, we get to the entertainment and the liquor licenses.
We
the
voted on these
19th.
ones at least, you know.
Yeah, right.
The ones that we haven't signed,
So-
we
I'm
voted
ready
on.
to send some of them out.
So, great. So we won't have to meet that week if we got everything,
Right.
our ducks in a row.
Right.
Good. If there's no other business to come before the board,
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
hang on, there's one comment online here.
Nothing new.
So.
No? All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye,
Aye.
thank you.